Halloween is a truly wonderful time of year. What with all the delicious candy, crazy costumes, and hocus pocus marathons, what's not to love? Oh, right. Not everyone loves horror movies, do they? So, real talk, I took my husband Andrew to see It, Chapter 2 the other week, thinking it was going to be, a fun bonding experience to get us in the Halloween spirit. FYI, Andrew despises horror films, so why continue to make him watch them? I have no idea. Anyways, as we're walking out of the theater, Andrew asked me one simple question. Ariel, I just don't understand. Why in the world do you like horror movies? He then goes on to explain why he finds them unpleasant, anxiety-inducing, and needlessly terrifying, which the sensible part of me can totally understand. I mean, why would someone willingly want to watch a killer clown viciously take the lives of innocent children? So, needless to say, I didn't really have a good answer to Andrew's question, and that got me wondering if I truly am a psychopath who genuinely enjoys watching the suffering of others on the big screen. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm not a psychopath, but seriously, why do so many of us seek out scary movies while others stay as far away from them as humanly possible? Let's find out. Before we get started, I should make it clear that there's no one-size-fits-all answer to this question. It turns out that there are a few different explanations for why some people love horror films while others despise them. And guess what? None of these explanations really have to do as much with personal preference as they do with the way our brains are wired. Now, I am most definitely not an expert in the subject, so let's see what the experts have to say. Theory number 1. Childhood experiences affect how we feel about being scared. This is the theory of Margie Kerr, a sociologist who studies fear and author of Scream, Chilling Adventures in the Science of Fear. Margie suspects that our ability to handle fear is at least partly environmental. Some people form positive associations with fear at an early age. For instance, maybe their family took a trip to a haunted house every Halloween, or they have fond memories of telling ghost stories around the campfire. Kerr explains that if we start tying scary things to friends and family, it comes together in this full picture of, this is entertaining, this is a fun thing that we do. Okay, so in my case, this totally makes sense. When we were growing up, my sister and I told ghost stories at sleepovers and bonded with our dad over watching horror films. In fact, I don't even remember a time when I didn't watch horror films with my dad. Allegedly, my first horror flick was Scream when I was 5 years old. And after that, well, I was hooked. I suspect that it's possible that I wouldn't have grown to love scary films had it not been for my early and fun experiences with them. According to Kerr, if, as a child, you never really had a reason to build that mental bridge between fear and fun, then taking in a scary movie just supplies you with the fear, and not the pleasure of warm and fuzzy memories to temper it. Theory number 2. People who love scary movies experience stress differently. Our next theory is another one of Kerr's, and is supported by the fact that physiologically, excitement and fear are extremely similar. According to Kerr, you have a high heart rate, you have elevated adrenaline, you have all the same ingredients, and these sensations could translate into a positive experience or negative one depending on how we interpret them. It's really the meaning that we make of how our body changes in those moments. Kerr says that those who have a positive experience will feel really alive and grounded in their bodies, almost like how someone feels after a really intense yoga class. But for a lot of other people, this crazy mix of psychological ingredients can have the opposite effect. Kerr says that they might interpret that almost like a panic attack, where they're feeling a sense of loss of control over what their body is doing. Yikes. Theory number 3. It has something to do with empathy. This hypothesis was formed by Ron Tamburini, author of Media and the Moral Mind. Ron has some, more troubling findings. He finds that people with less empathy like horror films more. You sure about that, Ron? Okay, so Tamburini basically argues that viewers with higher levels of empathy should dislike horror films because they react negatively to the suffering of others. Wait. Hold on now. I have a lot of empathy, okay? Like, I hate watching people fall or get hit in the crotch on America's Funniest Home Videos. So, I strongly disagree with this conclusion. But not to worry, this theory doesn't hold up as a generalization. It turns out that when heavily violent and torture-based movies were eliminated from these studies, the inverse correlation between empathy and enjoyment dropped. So if, like myself, you prefer traditional, fantastical horror, well, then you can disregard these studies altogether. Theory number 4, the Excitation Transfer theory. The most famous theory proposed is by Dolph Zillman, a professor well-versed in media psychology. The Excitation Transfer theory revolves around the feeling you have after you see the horror film. Zillman's research found that when people watch scary movies, their heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration increases. And after the film is over, this physiological arousal lingers. That means that any positive emotions you experience, like having fun with friends, are intensified. So instead of focusing on the fright you felt during the film, you recall having a great time, and you'll want to come back for more. On the other hand, if your experience was negative, you might not. For instance, if you were on a bad date, or if you had nightmares the night you saw the film. Like I said, your lingering arousal heightens any emotions you experience, so negative feelings might sway you to skip a horror flick in the future. All in all, there are a plethora of theories that try to explain why we subject ourselves to this craziness, and I couldn't possibly cover all of them in one video. It seems like every psychologist who studies media has some sort of opinion on this. Like, according to psychologist Stuart Weiss, you could like horror films because of a need for effect. That means that you find the expression of emotion to be a pleasant experience, whether it be happy, sad, scary, whatever. You know, I think I might be one of those people. Sometimes I put on a tearjerker because I just want a good cry, and I don't even have to be sad either. Is that weird? I also really love what psychologist Stuart Fishoff says about our love for horror films. According to Stuart, if we have a relatively calm, uneventful lifestyle, we seek out something that's going to be exciting for us, because our nervous system requires periodic revving, just like a good muscular engine. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I just need a little excitement in my life. And I'm not necessarily going to go bungee jumping or skydiving to get that feeling. A good old horror flick is good enough for me. So Andrew, I hope this video was a good enough answer to your question. And as for the rest of you, well, I would love to know what you think of these findings, and horror movies in general. Are you a horror freak like me, or do you despise scary movies? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you learned something new today, then please give this video a huge thumbs up, would really appreciate it. And if you're new to this channel, then hit that subscribe button down below for weekly videos that analyze the crazy world of pop culture. Alright y'all, as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a happy Halloween!